Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Positively Connected in Dogs. Today, I have a really special guest with me. I'm so excited to have her. Laurie was actually my instructor when I went through the Karen Pryor Academy, which was a life-changing moment, personally and professionally. So it's very fun to have you here today, Laurie. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about something that you have a ton of experience in, which is not only raising puppies and raising dogs, but specifically raising service dog prospects. How did you initially get into that?
It's a crazy story. I was at chicken camp in Hot Springs, Arkansas with Bob and Marion Bailey. Gosh, I don't even know how long ago. It was over 20 years ago. And there's lots of people from all over the place, and I happened to strike up a conversation with one of the other students there, and she was at chicken camp to learn the basics of marker training, clicker training, and because she was starting a service dog organization in Virginia. Well, just so happens I live in Maryland, and my parents live sort of right, very close to them. So she needed puppy raisers badly. I volunteered, and that's where it started. That's where it started. Probably, I'm going to say we picked up our first puppy in 2001. So
Okay. Long time coming. So how many puppies have been through your house as a service dog in training puppies?
funny, we have had, I'm going to say, well, we've had more than one puppy a year, and occasionally we do two at a time, which is the crazy
Yeah.
piece of it. But, probably because we also do puppy swaps. We can talk about that in a little bit too. I would say upwards of 40 puppies probably over the last 20 years. Yeah, almost exactly. Yeah, 2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, 20 years. We've probably had double the number of years. We've probably had that number. It's probably 40 puppies, I'd say.
I can't even imagine having that many puppies. I mean,
Yeah.
usually when we're talking to other trainers and talking to clients, we're like, well, I know this time of their development is really challenging, but it'll be over, and then all that hard work that you put in, you'll be able to reap the benefits of. And most of the puppies that come through you go to the program, so you don't really get to
Right.
experience that calm nature and all that hard work you put in.
Right, exactly. They are just settling in. They're just getting their good manners, training at about the
Yeah.
same time that I turn them in. So yeah, we're like, oh, bye, calm little puppy, you see ya. And then in comes the crazies, the 8-week-old bitey,
Yeah. Little
wild
velociraptors.
mammal. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Well, yeah.
So
It's fun.
talk to us a little bit about the puppies that you get. I know you've had a variety of breeds that have come through the house. I assume that they're dogs that you've gotten that have been specifically bred and selected to be a prospect.
Yeah, so that's evolved over the years as the service dog organization has evolved as well. So they started out with Labradors because they're generally well-natured, um, like a lot of people, like people. They're just pretty solid dogs, generally Labradors. But there was no specific breeder or breeding program at that point. They also went through some mixed breed dogs to see if we could avoid some health issues and things like that. And then they went into Great Danes at a point too to help people who needed balanced dogs. So we've had generally it's for my experience, it's been Labradors and a couple of Great Danes, probably 3 or 4 Great Danes, and then the occasional mixed breed dog. What's happening more lately is they're breeding co-ops. So there'll be service dog organizations who have kept meticulous genetic data, behavioral data, placement data on the puppies over the when I say puppies, they're breeding dogs. They're the dogs that have gone through the program. So they've been able to keep some data, and it's this really. I haven't actually seen the database, but I've heard about it, and it sounds quite elaborate. And they can keep data, so they can actually do breedings with a lot more science now than just going, well, this puppy grew into a great service dog. So did this one. Let's put them together and sort of see what we get because they seem to be healthy and happy. Now there's a lot more data. And I think the decisions that are being made about breeding have resulted in a higher sort of graduation rate. So it's really interesting how it's evolved over the past 20 years. And again, my experience is only with a couple different service dog organizations, probably 3. So it's interesting to see the evolution over the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm definitely a numbers person, so that makes me geek out just a little bit hearing about that, because
It's really
it's so
cool.
important. You know, when we're looking at dogs and their ability to do a job, that's really complicated. You know, genetics are involved, early learning experiences are involved. There's so many things that go into that. So that's really cool that they're looking at that and trying to figure out how can we create more success in the program and end up having more dogs that are not only capable of doing the job, but of doing it well. That's really cool.
Right, exactly.
For everyone tuning in, just so you know, we are going to be taking questions. So if you have a question about raising your service puppy, or for clients, if you're a trainer, please feel free to drop those into the comments and we will get to them at the end here. So Laurie, in your puppy raising experiences, have you been raising dogs for multiple purposes? You mentioned raising Great Danes for mobility. I know that I think you've done some dogs that have gone on to be diabetic alert dogs. What kind of jobs have you raised them for?
Yeah, so that's the cool part. Most dogs, except for the Great Danes, most dogs, we don't know what they're being raised for.
Interesting.
That decision hasn't been made until they get them back to the service dog agency and sort of see where their strengths lie. So the Great Danes obviously are typically used for mobility work, for balance work, just because of the sheer size. The Labradors can be too small for that. So whether they're going to be used for diabetic alert dogs, for there's actually a dog out there now that I just read his bio. He's being used for a child who has, and I might even get the name of the syndrome wrong. It's an allergic syndrome, and it's a mast cell, and he needs to get his, I'm going to say EpiPen. That's not the right thing. But anyway, the dog can detect it, because it obviously comes from a smell. I guess is what we're guessing. Anyway, we don't know until the client is interviewed. And I say we. I'm on the puppy raising side. I don't do any of the admin stuff. But we as puppy raisers, we have no idea what client is lined up for that dog. We don't know what type of service that dog's going to perform. So we, in general, on the puppy raising side, we prepare them for everything, because no matter what job they wind up doing, they still need all the basic foundation skills. They still need all of that, regardless of what actual job they're going to do. So they've done this, the dogs have done everything from scent detection, whether it's diabetic alert or some other retrieving, as far as if someone's in a wheelchair. They work with kids with autism. They'll actually lie across the front of the apply pressure. So all kinds of things. It's pretty amazing. For some folks with PTSD. So they run this spectrum of abilities and what they can do. So long answer to your question is we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know when we're training.
That's really interesting. And I guess in some ways it does make sense, because regardless of what they're going to do, they all need the same foundation. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But to some extent, I would imagine it makes it a little bit challenging. I mean, for me as a trainer, when I'm working with a dog, I like to know what the end goal is going to be, as specific as possible, because then that really helps us break that piece down and go through, good shaping plans. I imagine that once they get back to the organization, though, and the dog is evaluated, they go through continued training to then kind of hone in on a specific skill or skill set that they'll be doing.
Yeah, it's really cool. The organization that I work with the most, they bring the dogs back. They get sort of a week to acclimate. where they don't really do anything but just hang out, so they
Mhm.
get to know the dog and the dog gets to know the place. And then they ease them into the training program, taking them out, to Home Depot, to wherever, just to sort of get a feel um, for the dog's strengths, the dog's personality, uh, sort of areas that might be concerning. They also take a pretty good look then too at sort of where does this dog feel the most comfortable?
Mhm.
Where does he enjoy or she? Where do they? Where might tense up?
Mhm.
Um, so it's really interesting. They sort of I like it so much because they suit the dog to the person
Mhm.
and the person to the dog. They don't just go, okay, this guy here, he's going to be a diabetic alert dog. Let's get him start training. So it's really, I really like it because the welfare of the dog is first and foremost.
Mhm.
Um, so they don't even start training for specific tasks right away. Again, because those sorts of behaviors relatively easy to train, right? It's the
Yeah.
other stuff, the stuff that is less malleable. Like you can pretty much modify or create any behavior you'd like. It's a little bit harder to modify personality and preferences, whether we're talking people or dogs. And so they get a really good feel for, is this dog going to fit right into a square hole or a round hole? Do you see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so
Yeah.
they do a really nice job of that. And then, and only then, do they really start honing in on specific behaviors.
Yeah. I think I love what you said about them putting the needs of the dog first. And I think that's really important for anybody who's, getting involved in a puppy raising organization or is raising a service dog prospect puppy for themselves, is to realize that the job that the dogs have to do is tough. It's hard on them. It's a lot, it's long hours.
Mhm.
It's a lot of environments that could be stressful or
Yeah.
new. Lots of things that they can encounter while out working that they have to be really resilient and really confident. And so it's not an easy job for them to do. And so I imagine that, as you go through the process, not all dogs end up being suited for the job despite them being given that best start and best start at life.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I think I like to compare it to, say, professional sports. I could have had the best coaching and the best, I guess, what is it, access to
Hmm.
all the best equipment and things like that. But unless I really enjoy the sport and am really skilled at playing it, all that coaching, all that teaching, all that early learning, all that amazing equipment isn't going to do me any good. I still can't compete against the professionals, right? I can't even. I know myself. I can't do it. I don't care. I don't care if you hired an Olympic coach. It is. I don't have that. I'm not. That's not who I am. And it's the same thing with dogs. These dogs that I work with, at least now, have been bred specifically for service work. I mean, they've been bred for it, meaning the science has said this sire and this dam, they we have the best chance of making a puppy that's going to be able to make it in both health and temperament and ability.
Hmm.
Um, and even then, it sometimes doesn't work for crazy reasons. My current dog, I've always, all the dogs that we've had for the last 20 years have all been service dog dropouts, right? So we've been able to get them back after they don't make it through. There's a dog here, you can't see him, but Rogan, he's right here with me. He was released from the program because he had an occasional head tremor, just a head tremor. They had him checked out with a neurologist. The neurologist said it's idiopathic. He'll probably grow out of it. Um, but they said, you know what? We're not going to risk it. We don't want to. What if it develops into something bigger or worse?
Hmm.
So they released him. I hung up the phone. I'm like, look, I got to get off the phone because I have to come pick him up right now, right? So, so I, so like to me, I'm thinking this guy, he is an amazing dog. He's the temperament. He's oh God, it's amazing. But with that one little head tremor, that
Yeah.
was enough for the service dog organization to go, no, we're not going to risk it because um, what if it develops into something more? We don't want to, at 2 years, he's been paired with this person for, a year and a half. We don't want to
Mhm.
have to take that dog away or retire that dog. And so one dog didn't like wearing a vest. We worked and worked and worked to try to get this dog comfortable in a vest. Did not love anything on her. She
Mhm.
wound up being ours. I mean, we worked hard. We
Yeah.
worked hard and tried to make it as pleasant an experience as possible. And she was just very clear that this wasn't. She did not love the service work
Yeah.
career. And so, thankfully, they said, look, we're not going to push her. And so we got to keep her. So it's really tough, I think. To me, it's hard as a puppy raiser to see that
Mhm.
happen. I can't imagine if I was raising my own dog and someone said, you know what, that's probably not the best career for that dog. Well, no,
Mhm.
but this is my dog. I love my dog. And my dog can do this. I think that's the hardest part is the objectivity,
Yeah.
remaining objective because there's so much else attached to that dog.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's sometimes hard because even as a puppy raiser, I know it's not my dog, but even as a puppy raiser, it's sometimes hard for me to
Yeah.
go, "Are you sure? I mean, this dog's really good. Are you sure?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of tough calls. So assuming things go right and the dog ends up being suited for service work, what does that look like? What does that mean? What kinds of personality traits or skills help that dog, make it into the program?
It's really interesting because this is why they decide later as to what that dog's job's going to be. So some dogs, if if so typically like for an autism uh, a service dog for someone with autism, they need to be pretty chill. They need to not get
Mhm.
ramped up very quickly. They need to be able to calm down quickly if they do get ramped up. Whereas perhaps maybe a diabetic alert dog needs to have a lot of persistence, needs to be active and able to go, hey, I'm poking your leg. You need to check your sugar. And
Mhm.
depending on where that person is in their sugar, they may have to like get really serious about it. Even if the owner says, look, stop, knock it off. They have
Yeah.
to go, no, 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 no. You must do this. So the personalities are different for the jobs that are involved. And if you've got a dog that's going to go into, say, a middle school environment, whenever we get back to normal
Yeah.
uh, eh, outside of this pandemic, that dog needs to be able to settle quickly and not be distracted or ramped up quickly. Um, Whereas, if you're given it, if the dog's going to go to let's say, a college age person who's really social and still somewhat active, you need a dog that can keep up with that person.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting. They sort of again they sort of look at who is that dog naturally and normally, activity level and personality wise, and where might that dog best fit. So they look
Mhm.
at personality, they look at energy, they look at exercise requirements.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we noticed with Rogan. This dog could have never, um, as cool and as calm and as laid back as he is, this dog needs his exercise or he is very unhappy. He's
Mhm.
not destructive, but he's unhappy. And an unhappy dog, you don't want to have a working dog that's unhappy.
Right.
Um, and so again, I think looking at exercise requirements, enrichment requirements,
Mhm.
energy level, sort of willingness to stay on task and be persistent, even
Mhm.
if they're told to knock it off, or if just environmentally, if it's one of our dogs went to work in a hospital environment with a nurse. I could only imagine that there are some times when that dog gets pushed around a little bit because just of the busyness. And
Mhm.
if a doctor has to get in quickly, they're going to, just like with people, they're going to shove you aside and go get out of my way. That dog has to be resilient enough to go, yeah, cool. All right, now I'm out. What's next?
Yeah.
As opposed to a softer dog that would go, oh my God. I don't know what to do now.
Yep.
Whereas that dog, that softer dog, might be perfect in another situation, or in another sort of environment. So
Mhm.
again, they sort of look and see what are the dog and the environment person, are they compatible? And I think, to me, those are the things to really look at.
That's really interesting. So it's not like all dogs have to be X, Y, and Z. It's making sure that all the dogs are comfortable and happy, and whatever kind of skills or temperament or drives they have, then make them suited or more suited for different skills.
Right. And of course, I think the basics are they have to be, at the very least, neutral to other people. We would prefer
Mhm.
that they're friendly, obviously, because dogs in public get attention. There's
Mhm.
no way to go into a grocery store with a service dog in training and escape attention. So they at least have to be people neutral, but we would prefer that they are people sort of forward,
Mhm.
so that when the person that you don't see bends down and pets the dog isn't startled. They also have to be at least dog neutral.
Yeah.
Um, you get these dogs that'll bark at other dogs, and oh, but it only happens occasionally. They can't. That's
Yeah.
you can't have any type of reactivity um, in service work. It just takes away from the job that the dog should be doing. And when you look at service dogs, they should be, we say invisible, um, because we don't want them to stand out and stick out. We want them to sort of blend in with the environment. And so I think, regardless of what the dog is going to do, they have to be, at the very least, dog, environment, people neutral, if
Mhm.
not what I would say a little bit dog, people, and environment forward.
Yep.
Meaning, they enjoy it. But then on the other end, they have to be able to simmer it down too.
Right.
Let me tell
Right.
you, that's why it's so hard for service dogs to make it all the way through, because it's like threading the needle. It's really difficult. It's like someone, you know, trying to get on The Voice and making it to the end, or someone trying to get into professional sports and making it to MVP. It happens. It happens every day. But man, you don't see the ones that don't make it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
it's
really
tough.
interesting. I
Yeah.
bet. So obviously, a lot of that prep and helping them get to that point where they can be comfortable and ideally even forward in those environments and with the people and with the other dogs. Some of that's genetics, but a lot of that also then comes down to early learning experiences with you and training with you. So, are there certain things that you change when you're raising a service dog versus when you're raising a dog that you would raise as a pet?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I just raised a puppy as a pet, and most definitely, uh, I think all dogs, regardless of what their purpose is going to be, all dogs need good manners. Every single
Mhm.
one of them need good manners. But I think service dogs in particular, there's it's a skill. It's not even a behavior. I've started thinking about things in categories of skills and behaviors. Um, I like to teach the service dog puppies to sort of look to me or look to their handler for whenever they're in doubt, right? So, and what do I mean by that? I do a lot of watching the puppy, helping the puppy. So if the puppy is, let's say, getting ready to jump into the trash can, right? Because that's what puppies do. Instead of going no, and doing that sort of thing, go, hey, puppy, 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 come over here. And so so that's just one example. If they're looking to reach and grab the dish towel off of the refrigerator or stove, hey, puppy, puppy, puppy. Um, if they're if a ball has rolled under the sofa and they can't get to it, would you like me to help you? So I sort of insert myself as, hey, I'm the gatekeeper. I can open these doors for you. And I mean that metaphorically. I can open these doors. I obviously literally as well. But hey, if you need anything, I'm like their concierge. That's even better. I'm not even a gatekeeper. I'm the concierge. You need anything, you come see me. I can figure this out for you. So that I feel like I'm establishing this communication very early in their life, that so that they understand, hey, you're not in this by yourself. Ask me
Mhm.
anything. I can help you. Um, I don't do that as much with the pet puppies, mostly because it's not really going to be needed as
Mhm.
much, and the owners are different, or the guardians of those dogs are different. They want a dog that's going to sit in their lap and take go on a walk with them, and just be comfortable and just be a dog.
Mhm.
They're not, in general, this is a broad generalization, they're not, and they don't need to be, as in tune with
Mhm.
their dogs as, say, somebody with a disability who is going to be having a service dog live with them and work with them. That connection to me is way deeper and crucial to a service dog partner relationship. So it's a really broad skill,
Mhm.
but
Might have lost our internet connection. We'll give her just a second here. Uh-oh. Might have to have her pop back out and pop back in. Be patient with us, guys. Okay. Well, we're gonna wait and we're gonna hang on, and hopefully she'll be able to join us back in. That's really interesting though about the connection component, because when we are working with our dogs at home, a lot of times what I am working on with them is teaching them to ignore. So not necessarily connect with us. So for example, in our dog powered sports and with a lot of my pet manners people, we see a distraction and I don't necessarily need the dog to turn around and engage with me. I just want them to be able to not react to the distraction. So if I see another dog or a squirrel, I'll ask the dog to move along and to pass that distraction and pay them for ignoring it, right? Pay them for continuing to move forward past it. I don't necessarily need that eye contact from them, that one-on-one time with them. But for service dog work, we need them to go above and beyond. They need to be able to check in with their handler at all times. So I can see that difference that we would want with our dogs, not only getting them to ignore those distractions, because yes, we don't want them to be reactive, but also then taking that attention and redirecting it to the handler. It's a lot of work that we have to do. We've got a comment here that I'll address. Laurie just messaged me. She's trying to log back on. If you have a puppy that isn't necessarily reactive, but might lean towards curiosity, like towards other dogs, that can go both ways. How do you help them succeed in learning to be calm in that situation? I know there's a lot of factors in choosing method, but generally, how do you go about figuring out what puppy or figuring out what would be right for that puppy? That's a great question, Tina. So if it definitely depends on what age range that we are looking at with our puppies when we're raising them. We're going to talk about that in just a minute with Laurie, but when we are looking at our critical period of socialization, it's very different for them. During that time, we are encouraging curiosity. We are encouraging them to check out the world and build positive associations with it. But as they start to go a bit older and they are out of that critical period of socialization, then we're really starting to establish those behaviors. So Tina, if you're still watching, if you want to comment and let us know how old your dog is, that might give us a little bit more information that we can then use to give you a little bit more of a specific answer. But remember that when we're raising puppies, that critical period of socialization is from the time that they are born until about 20 weeks of age. And during that time frame, we have to build those positive associations and teach them that everything out in the world, whether it's people, other dogs, surfaces under their feet, sounds, smells, things that move, all of that has to be a positive association with them. And that can be tricky too when we're talking about relationships with other dogs, because we want to make sure that if we are socializing our puppies that are going to be service dog prospects, that they have good experiences. So I don't want to just say, I want you to experience all of the puppies, right? We want to make sure we are getting in the right kinds of social moments so that the dog is learning that other dogs are fun versus getting into a fight with a neighbor's dog and then learning that dogs can be scary, because that can have a really big impact on them. Looks like Laurie is back with us here.